And we're back with WAAAGH Tactics, here to talk about the balanced Dataslate changes, MFM, and tournament pack reactions. Boys, a lot has changed. Some might say the world has changed. I will never be the same. And that's all right, but it's time for us to all get informed, come to grips with the reality on what our codex really looks like now. Here with me, I have my boy, Kevin Leonard, very magnificent player, top player of the world, Tundra Tactics teammate. Let's see what's going on here with the Orks as a whole. We'll talk about some of the difficult matchups or factions that I think you guys should be aware of. And I kind of want to talk about secret missions for a little bit, even though that could be a video on its own. Just my first reactions to secret missions. And I'll tie it all up with how I feel about Nexus plus this nerf and how Orc players should go on moving forward. Kevin, can I get a whoa? All right, guys.
Also, speed mob is cheeks.
Okay. So first, let's start off with talking about the point changes. I know you've heard about them already, but let's talk about how I feel about them and how the Orc community more sees it than just general 40K players. So starting off with Boss Snickrot. Snickrot moved up to 95 points, but most people can concede he'll remain valuable, and he will be very popular in Nexus. But will people start to play with commandos as well, or just keep him even with this point increase? Is something that I want to talk about with Orcs for a bit. A lot of people always talk about commandos seem interesting. We've only seen one person recently really make them work, and it was Mark Perry with his 30 commandos in a dread mob, which was very confusing, and I hope to talk about him real soon about that. Maybe even bring it to you guys, the conversation. But all in all, people have been back and forth about commandos, with Snickrot costing even more now, taking a bit of a tax. Are we going to even have to play the meta game of infiltration?
I think for you either take Boss Snickrot or commandos. I don't think you need to take both, unless if you really want to do the big wall of screening for infiltration if you're facing like combat armies. But yeah, personally, I think it's one or the other.
It's one or the other, and I think they serve different purposes. I think we've seen Perry using 30 of them, and there is a real point in that, right?
Yeah.
Then we have Mega Knobs, the real kicker here. 10 points plus per model. Most people can agree, concede, and understand that there was a bit overboard. It was either one or the other, which was more reasonable, giving them point increases or changing their Feel No Pain to a 5+. GW went ahead and did both. Therefore, most people will also agree that you really shouldn't see Mega Knobs in more than 2 to 3 man units. I could entertain you bringing them for what? Bully Boys, with the teleporter, like Kevin was saying earlier. You can bring 3 with gas. I think that's the key number. But as for how else are you bringing them? I mean, I could see you bringing a War Boss with the 4 at Feel No Pain now that we're back to Warhorde a little bit, and sticking 2 guys with him just to keep him a little alive a little longer. But even then, it's whenever you're looking at them, you're like, they're not really giving you anything. What they were before was durability, something we actually really needed in Nexus. And it seems like GW kind of forgot about that and just gutted us in that case. I would have very much liked to see a point increase, retain the 4 at Feel No Pain, and then let us go into Nexus with this rule and see if it actually helps us with our secondary scoring now that the whole purpose and tempo of the game has changed. They didn't give us any opportunity to breathe or even feel out the new missions and rules, and I think that was a big miss on them and overreaction.
This is probably tinfoil hat territory, but you can probably thank WTC for that. Because they, including Orcs, I wouldn't say they nerfed CSM into the ground, but they attacked certain units that were basically all the lists that were probably in the WTC. So you get just maybe I wouldn't say solace, but that's probably why.
And the only reason we bring that up is not to bring them down. It's because people will always ask, well, how does Eldar get away with this being so strong for so long? How do Necron Wraiths get away with being so strong for so long? But then stuff like CSM gets hit with the nuke, Orcs get hit with the nuke. It just seems like sometimes when a big contender like WTC comes up and focuses down some enemies or factions, then GW seems to pull the trigger on them. Because as we look at the points forward, something like the Pain Boss getting hit, right? Pain Boss sitting at a 70 points. Why did he get sniped, right? GW looking confused out here, increasing the point cost on a Pain Boss when he was never even in contention to being used.
Yeah. They probably typed in Excel and hit pain and then hit that anyway.
Yeah, for real. They just that's what I mean. That's a good way to look at it, is when Kevin brought that up. It's not that we're trying to talk bad. It's to kind of give people an idea to how these answers to these questions that people bring up, right? How come us? Where did this come from? them hitting the pain boss to me look like they just straight up sweep the board, because it makes no sense to bring the pain boss into it, considering that no one even wanted him for 60 points. And so yeah, he got sniped with the crossfire. One more thing I want to bring about Mega Knobs is that them being now eliminated from most of our lists means that we are now vulnerable to high toughness, high armor units, meaning Tyranids, or as we talk about further, the factions that I want to talk about. Everybody know Tyranids became interesting with their strengths, getting additional strength on Synapse, and how they're going to continue to play the mission in a different way and try to actually contest primary. This is hard for us because we were one of those factions that they did have just enough damage to hurt us, and they have these weirdly tough models for point cost that we don't trade great into. I got to spend a Beast Boss and a Beast Snaggle Boy unit and the truck, you know, if I'm including the truck, in a combo to kill one Tyranid monster. That doesn't trade out well to any degree, especially when you throw a Feel No Pain on something like a Maliceptor, right? Yeah. Things kind of unravel very quickly.
Yes. Yeah, like when you said on Maliceptors, that's probably like probably the biggest pain in the ass when fighting Tyranids, is because it's not just a -1 to them itself, it's the 6-inch aura of it. So it can just go in the middle of your army and just annoy everything.
Yeah, for sure. So Tyranids are now becoming more contenders. You see Land Raiders are also pretty tough out here and all popular throughout the meta. Gravis Marines, all these different kind of things that want to get through with armor saves and higher strength quantities. We appreciated our kill saws for this. And now we straight up don't have kill saws. We have the access to -3 AP is gone, the re-rolling wounds, the high strength. It felt really good and it was vital for us. That's what actually swung some of our matchups too, is that we weren't faced with these armor save transports, Land Raiders, or Sagittars even that could hold us back. Now we're missing Squig Hog Boys, which used to deal with that in volume. Mega Knobs were the way we used to deal with that, and -3 AP with kill saws. Now we need to find a new way to deal with these tough meta that's going to come out in Nexus, and GW is slowly handicapping us by not giving us tools to go along with taking away our high toughness capability to kill things. And that's just not me saying it. That's obviously known throughout the Orc community as a whole. I'm not saying you can't kill it. I'm saying the combos that we're paying to kill things of equivalent point cost are not good trades here. And Orcs are one of those army that wants to trade because we're momentum game army. Do you want to say something on that?
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. You want to trade up when you do the trade game. I mean, that's just a general what you want to do. But yeah, Orcs were really good at doing that. But now that Mega Knobs are taking away the 4-up and the points nerf, like you said, it should have been one or the other.
And obviously, like I said, I know people hate the Feel No Pain, but I still would have had us keep the Feel No Pain just because the game as a whole can deal with it. Just people didn't like to deal with it. But make us cost more so we don't have as many tools and we can lose the game in other ways, as Nexus seemed to give people other ways to be a simple, boring Bully Boys army. They gave it harder for secondaries. They made it so you have secret missions. We didn't even get to experience any of that for a Feel No Pain. Just seemed like a total nuking. And that's the only thing I want to elaborate so much on. Not that I'm so salty about it, but it seemed a bit out of character and overreactionary. And GW should learn from this and really consider this a mistake.
Yeah.
And Bully Boys will focus about war bosses, right? I know a lot of people are like, what about Bully Boys? What are we going to do? You can take a Beast Boss on foot. He's all right in a Bully Boys unit. Not high about Squigs to any degree or with their characters. So I really don't consider them. Maybe one Maz unit. Other than that, you'll take mobs of Boyz, one big unit of 10 knobs with one war boss, because we'll talk about the FAQ on war bosses as well. And Bully Boys is just going to be looking a little bit dead in the water. Maybe you can consider something with a first strike, alpha strike of 30 commandos, a Zagrat, and then you pull a wall on turn 1. Then you bring the rest of the army for weird momentum. But no one's really considering that competitively, you know?
Yeah, since you mentioned secret missions, the one where you put your warlord into the enemy's objective, it'd be like maybe a niche case. Actually, make Boss Snickrot the warlord, save him till turn 5, and then just yeet him over there.
You just have to control it though, which is the hard part. Boss Snickrot isn't absolutely killing 5 intercessors or whatever we'll say, right? But yes, I've considered that too. But let's talk about that when we get to secret missions, because that's a whole section I want to talk about itself. Now let's talk about Pain Boys real quick. The rest of these will be real fast. I think in tandem with the Green Tide changes, the detachment changes we seems a bit painful that they went up to 80 points. 70, they were still like kind of expensive. They cost more than a war boss did. 80 points was just kind of nailing them to the wall to make sure that they stay where they'll be. But I think you can see them somewhat viably paired with knobs. So like I said, if you're going to run 20-man units of boy mobs in the bully boys, let's say you take 40 of them and you have two 20-man units, then you have your war boss with your 10 knobs. I could consider you bringing more knobs with a pain boy instead, because at least in the bully boys, you can re-roll the hit roll. Shout out to Bean Bud in Discord. You can re-roll the hit rolls with the pain boy unit to make up for the lack of -1 to hit. You can regen a couple different kind of utility and character combination in that set, but then you're not getting the double walls in that case, right? So that's a whole nother thing as itself. But pain boys can still be played, but it's, you know, ouch, another ouch. But I just want to explain why people don't like them. Like I said, pain bosses for just caught in crossfire made no sense. Kind of hilarious that GW even did that. Kind of shows lack of awareness there. They showed their cards a bit. And then Weird Boy going up 10 points. You know, can we run him solo? Do people want to run him in the solo still continuously so he can score secondaries? He is very soft. He can be killed. He can fail his reroll. He can fail his teleporting ability. So it's not like he's a reliable outcome. Plus, the green tide changes to their stratagem makes him a bit annoying as well in that case, where they nerfed him in that way. I like to see him with a 10-man unit of boys, as we were talking about with secret missions or just missions as a whole, pressure, stuff like that. I'm still totally fine with people including Weird Boys for 65 points. I don't think that's too contentious. He was quite a deal for 55. I would have liked to see him stay the same.
Yeah, I just think with what was it, with Green Tide, you just kept seeing 3 War Boss, 3 Pain Boy, 3 Weird Boy. I think maybe GW just saw that. It's like, people are taking all these. You probably should have up the points.
And really, it was like you just one was all you really needed. So I'm not too mad about this, but whatever. It won 10 points, 10 points. Now let's talk about the FAQs real quick, the data slate changes, and things that you should be considering as an orc player as to how it describes to you, even though I know Tank Shock's changed. Well, how does that matter to you? So let's speak of the FAQ that's on everybody's mind. So this FAQ, this question was asked. Someone wanted to know if a model has an ability that triggers when you call a WAAAGH and that model is embarked in a transport. When this happens, e.g. a war boss and the biggest boss ability, does this ability take effect? No, abilities do not take effect while embarked within transports unless they specifically state otherwise. Now, with 40K, when your rules lawyering, this is the kind of the tedious, annoying part of 40K, but here, that's what I'm here for you, right? What this is saying is the word that's really important here is win. Now, I'll show you what I mean by that by bringing the ability right on screen. Boop. So for the war boss, and you read the biggest and the best, he says, when you call a WAAAGH, until the start of the next battle round, add 4 to your attack characteristics on this battle's melee weapons. Because it says when you call the WAAAGH, and the transport wording and how the transport abilities work is no abilities work or are activated for your character while you're embarked within a transport. That's a straight up rule throughout all of 40K. That's why your data sheet abilities don't work. Just your weapon profiles work when you're using your open top from your firing deck, from your transports or your vehicles, right? So because it's when you call the WAAAGH and not during the WAAAGH, for example, like the Mega Knobs Crumpin' Time ability. The Mega Knobs Crumpin' Time ability says during the battle round in which you call a WAAAGH, models in this unit have a feel no pain of 8, now 5+. You understand? So because when you're reading the FAQ here, and the FAQ says when you call a WAAAGH, and because the transport ability is while you're within it, trying to activate his ability, your characters are essentially death within the transport. It means that his ability never gets activated. So I understand people with the persistent rules, what they mean by persistent rules, and they'll pull that up as a counter argument. But the whole point here is that it never gets triggered. So there's nothing that can persist. So he does gain his WAAAGH abilities, but he loses his abilities from just his data sheet if he's been embarked with a transport. That's how that happens. Even though it sucks, GW took it very literally. What's very annoying about this for the orc community is that they went out of their way to change a feel no pain on a data sheet. Why didn't you go ahead and change one word from the war boss ability and say during? That's the whole point, guys. That's how simple it is. It sucks, but that's really how it works. So just keep that in mind. It is what it is. But when you watch GW's, they did their little meeting where the English guy comes out and he talks and answers questions like it's an interview. I forgot what it's called. But he was discussing how
Meta Monday,
I think so. I'm not sure, but not Meta Monday. It's the GW official one. He was saying that they understood that ruling was pretty raw, and meaning they understood that they took it very literally, and that they know that that's not really the intended rule behind it, but they just wanted to show what rules were intended when written. It was very weird, and it just seems like, hey, they did it just to prove a point, not necessarily because they didn't understand what they were doing. So that's really weird. Now, with that over, it is what it is. I'm sure it'll change soon. Let's talk about the detachment abilities and why it changed and how much I think it affects you, right? So we have Green Tide Detachment. What's important here is not everybody has a 6-up invuln, but if the unit contains 10 or more models, it goes up to 5-up invuln. So your boys now aren't full-time 5-up invuln. They're not a full-time 6-up invuln, and once they're 10 plus, they are a 5-up invuln. That does suck, but we also have Call the Horde. We have all these other reasons. Pistols not being able to do secondaries while playing with the pistols actually sucks for Green Tide. As Kevin knows and most people know, when you're playing with the Green Tide, because you're a fat unit that can spread out along the table and you could use your pistols to activate secondaries, you'd be scoring as you stand stationary. That in itself being gone means that you changing the boys' durability and their ability to score on top of that means you just hit it with a double combo, not including the character increases we just spoke about as well.
I do know there is a mission in the Pariah Nexus where Battle Line can fall back and do actions or advance and do actions. So there's some solace or in combat, but it does suck that pistols can't just
and nobody knows how long or how often those abilities are going to be in each mission, right? Or like how often they'll be in a mission pack. So it might be one mission out of 5 that Battle Line matters or something like that.
Yeah, like if you had a GT, you do it like once or twice max.
Sure, you can't rely on that for your Green Tide, meaning Green Tide was taking a hit, not on just the durability, not on just the points increases, but they also took the change on the fact that they're going to struggle to score now. And you would normally think, well, hey, Nexus favors you surviving and planning your secondary and be able to do it. Yes, but a boys unit is typically always charged, always tagged. The enemy would know to touch you with the transport away from your characters and stop you from scoring or attempting secondaries. That means your big mobs that are slow and not really taking the initiative are going to be even more vulnerable to being stopped from scoring, on top of the fact that you don't have pistols. So how are you really scoring and double whamming on that? On top of the fact that Mega Knobs were very prevalent in almost every single Green Tide list. You can go through most of the Green Tide lists that I showed. Of course, I'll say 1 out of 5 of the top undefeated or 4-1 players didn't have Mega Knobs, but 4 out of the 5 did bring them either in a War Boss with Ruckus Warcaller, a Big Mech, or Gazgul Thraka, meaning they also took the hit to the only support unit combination that they cared about, which was Mega Knobs. So now they were taking a hit from that direction as well. So GW sniped them on their leaders a little bit, sniped them on their abilities from their support from the other units, made sure Ruckus Warcaller couldn't be used on Mega Knobs going forward. They changed that as well. And they're just built in less durable. Not to mention they're slower. So now we can talk about Tide of Muscle. The stratagem has changed here. And now this is you add 1 to your charge roll, and you can re-roll them if you're greater than 10. Right, we already have an enhancement that if you're greater than 10, you can re-roll the charges. So this stratagem just feels kind of redundantly and changed, and they didn't really take much consideration into it. They just wanted to take it off the table that you couldn't compound adding the round to the inches to make your 5-inch charge late game.
Yeah, I didn't think, honestly, me personally, I didn't think it was that bad of a stratagem or that like
broken.
Broken.
I mean, it didn't feel that broken. It didn't feel that bad. You could get it off on people, but for the most part, the units was just boys. People could fight you back off their objective wherever they may be. It let you get the initiative with your very slow units of mobs of boys. So it felt good in that way. Now you lost that. You're adding 1 to your charge and you're getting a reroll. It's like, what? And then my other guy gets another reroll. That doesn't feel that great. So they changed that as well. That means they made it slower. So we got slower. I'm just naming out these reasons why we got nerfed, not so people feel bad, but so that we can add it all together and then kind of summarize our conclusion on it at the end. And then we have Go Get 'em stratagem, changing effect. Now instead, what happens to summarize it is instead of you automatically rolling 6 if you're greater than 10 models, now this is, hey, you have to roll a D6. If you're greater than 10, then you get to re-roll.
Yeah, like that was a really good strategy in other shooting armies. But now, sure, you can re-roll the dice, but I mean, there's a lot of times where if you roll a 1, you can re-roll into a 1.
Yes,
it just sucks.
Yes, and actually good. That's why we do this live. A good comment that was brought up right now in chat was my boy Brandon said they changed the strat due to the secret missions for enemy objectives. So that does make sense that they really didn't want Orks to get an auto secret mission, right? So they didn't want to give you the mission changes for that. But the fact that it's only secondary part of this is you reroll charges is kind of lame. If you gave me +1 to wound, maybe I'd be more interested in this. You became an actual tide of muscle, right? And you actually did something, because then you can do this and then reroll wounds as well on that and make up for the fact that they're less durable with make them slightly more killy, because you're also giving them secondaries. That could have been cool, but they just said reroll charges. It's like,
or maybe like add one.
But good point though.
Or add one per instead of changing reroll the charge, or add one per battle round to a max of 3 or something like that.
We're just saying that it seems a bit haphazardly, because it just kind of lays over one of our enhancements anyways. But good point in the comments, and that's why we do this live, because I like to get the feedback from people while we read this out, because there's really a discussion for the Ork community as a whole. I'm just summarizing what I've observed in my opinions as well. So these are the 3 major FAQs, or Dataslate changes that were quite important. Not to mention, they did talk about the bigger shells for bigger gets. You know, it's not intended that you can use push it, throttle it, pretty much push it. You can't push it if you can't also do the first part of that stratagem, which is target a vehicle and get +1 to wound. Therefore, you can't use bigger shells for bigger gets intended that way. Were you gonna say something?
I was gonna say, from what Gary said, why is Kevin on YouTube? Because I can be.
So then we have the Dataslate changes. We have another thing I want to talk about was tank shock and grenade. This is important because we just talked about how mega knobs were one of our answers for durable vehicles and monsters and all these things. Grenade was another one of those answers, and so was tank shock, where you can run into things and be able to take your truck and say, hey, I'm going to attempt to put some tank shock damage on you. I could take my Boyz unit and throw grenades at you while I advance towards you. Now you can't do that anymore. That means we've lost that mobility of action where we can make pressure charge into you, but now we can't throw grenades into you to try to chip you down. That actually does affect you as an Ork player. You don't like that. Tank shock being less effective means you can't use your truck, for example, to go run down an enemy assassin. I used to love using my assassin, use a truck to just run down an assassin and charge him and tank shock him and erase him off the table. So you did use some utility in that. At first, people would say, oh, my Stampa doesn't get 24 dice. Yeah, I know. But what's really important is stuff like your truck, or even your killer cans can't tank shock really that effectively anymore if they wanted to. So
but
there's some changes.
The Stampa has the most dice out of everybody.
No, there you go. Yeah, that's true. He does get the most out of that. So that's what I wanted to say about the Dataslate changes. There were different armies that brought it up, but let's talk about real quick about the secret missions, and then I'll talk about some of our tough matchups in this reason, right? So I want to talk about, will secret missions be a weakness for the Orks? There's just a question, just something I want to bring up as an open discussion as I move forward and talk about factions I think we should pay attention to as our faction moves forward, right? So Kevin here is a lover of demons, so you're really excited about some of the changes.
Oh
in the
boy,
points, right? And see, demons are one of those armies that low key, if you're playing against them, can score secret missions against you. So here I brought up all 4 of the secret missions, and we're gonna go over them real quick. That way, maybe talk about what armies may be able to do them and why they suck for Orks in that way, or maybe they don't suck for Orks. So we have War of Attrition, End of Battle. There are no battle line units from your opponent's army on the battlefield. Every battle line unit from your opponent's army is within your opponent's deployment zone. Would you, as someone who wants to counter Orks with most of your meta list that you're playing now, War of Attrition?
If Green Tide was still a thing, I 100% would not do this. But now that I wouldn't, maybe not dead, but severely nerfed, I think you're not going to take a lot of Boyz, or maybe like if you're in Dread Mob, even 3 units of Gretchen or 4 units of Gretchen. Those are relatively easy to kill, or try to get them out of the deployment zone if you want to get the good bits.
Relatively easy to kill is even just Boyz.
Yeah, or even just 10 Boyz just to stick to something.
10 Boyz are kind of easy to kill. Let's say you just bring 10 Boyz for that reason. One thing is with that Weird Boy and 10-man unit of Weird Boy that I talked about earlier, why I like, is for that reason you can keep them alive from not getting killed. But some of the matchups that we will talk about that are tough, like Grey Knights and maybe Necrons, that have the ability to kind of find your battle line units and kill them, you'll see. But that'll be more of a redundant reasoning to bring up for those factions that we talk about real quick. But we're going to go through these fast. War of Attrition is not one most people will bring up into Orks because they don't think they will deliberately go out of their way to kill battle line. What I will say is that it's a matchup dependent reasoning, though. If you're playing against Guard or Grey Knights or Necrons, or Drakari, something like that, they have a high likelihood of actually eliminating all of your battle line units and then tiptoeing their O's into the other side of the battlefield. Even if you're playing Dread Mob, I mean, you're just bringing Grots and they're easy to kill battle line. So these weird armies might be able to pull that off on you, but you as an Orc player, can you score this on your enemy? Right?
I would say that's honestly a tough one.
That's honestly a tough one, because if someone's bringing battle line for the intent that they want to take advantage of them and not have a weakness to this, means they're most likely going to keep them protected, or they're going to have one of those 12-inch bubbles as Space Marines for denying any sort of deep strike to get the initiative on them. So the Orcs going to have to chew their way through most of the enemy's side of the battlefield anyways, and they would have to choose a different secret mission, in my opinion, if you're going to attempt that anyways. But it could be brought up in your local meta as something you want to keep forward. Just War of Attrition is one you have to kind of understand when you're playing every game, you guys, that people can kill our battle line units kind of effectively, and not everybody's swarming the table with 6x10, which might become a thing, but they're not the thing right now.
Yeah. So
we have Shatter Cohesion. There are no units left in your opponent's army. Okay, that's cool. On the battlefield, that's fine. Okay. Every unit from your opponent army that is on the battlefield meets one or more of these conditions. That unit is battle shocked. That unit is below half strength. That unit is more than 3 inches away from all objective markers.
I think that that one might be okay for Orcs. It's definitely one of the more pain in the ass ones, but I can see it happening, especially trying to get everyone away from the objectives or outside of 3 inches.
Yes,
you could, like, at least with the stuff you have left. But that's something like if you're like really in the hole and you're like just a Hail Mary, that's the only time I'd probably take that one.
I'll say
if I was the Orc player.
If you were the Orc player, you would take this one. I would say it's very unlikely as an Orc player, in my opinion, that you've done this to the opponents. More likely it's done to you, as we're the army that rolls kind of like with momentum, right? So as I run into you and I kind of shatter your lines and hold you back, there's a good chance that I'm actually gone and killed in that case. Where the only way I would say that difference in this is if you're playing against something like Eldari.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was like a fringe case. This is like one of
in
them.
The fringe case, I would say is Eldari. If you're running down someone like Eldari, maybe Tau. In this case, maybe you can take the secret mission. Is you as an Orc player, this is going to be a matchup for you to think, hey, if I'm going to run myself up the table, lose all my momentum and die, only take a certain amount of flesh from the enemy, and understand that they're going to take the table. They're going to have to slowly take the table later in the end of the game. You can try to hold every 3 objective, injure enough of these units that they're battle shocked or below half strength, because they just have to be below half strength. You really could score this one. But this is more of a you hoping to God you're countering one of these quick shooting armies that's going to play the game at like a slowed control rate and try to score all their points at the end of the game. Means you also have to not only make momentum on them, but then not have more primary than them. So how likely is that? And that's why I say secret missions weakness for Orcs is kind of weird, right? Just think about this: it sounds likely, but then it's like, under what conditions am I even picking a secret mission as an Orc player, right? It's like I said,
it's like the most. This is the most fringe, but like the other ones,
Yeah. So last 2 real quick are Unbroken Wall. You control 3 or more objective markers that are not within your deployment zone. I don't think that's likely for an Orc player. Just saying.
Yeah. That might be like first for Shadow Cohesion, second for Unbroken Wall. Let's just say if you're.
Would you take this against Orcs? Is a better question for you.
Against, yes.
Unbroken Wall.
Yeah, I'd probably do that.
Yeah, with what?
You've seen my Nurgle.
Well, with demons, with Nurgle demons is something you're bring up. Something like maybe Tyranid monsters or Tyranid as a momentum. Somebody that they could eventually take your first shot, slowly make their way onto the table and grab all these objectives at the end of this game.
Yeah,
because
if you're facing the Orcs, probably the first couple of turns they have you on the primary, which will let you do a secret mission, and then you just do this.
Yes, exactly. And you're going to clap them back. It's not looking good for Orcs, in my opinion, if you're picking how likely you are to score these and how likely someone can actually choose them against you off a whim just because you're up by a little bit of primary, and then they do these to you more likely just based off how we play the game. Then there's Command Insertion. This is the one most people are looking at to be the likely one that can actually be done. Your Warlord is within range of 1 or more objective markers in your opponent's deployment zone that you control.
Yeah, so like I was saying before, it might be a funny case of you make Schnickrot your Warlord and then save them to the very end. And if you go second, that's even better because let's say if you
It just
kill it off there and you just slam it on there. So like if you're playing against World Eaters, let's say if they stick you their home and they move off, and then you just wait till turn 5, and then like, oh, I have the secret mission. Here you go, it's mine now. And there's like there might be a couple of funny cases.
So one thing you brought up
doable.
before, this happened to me before, but I didn't. Here's the trick, right? I want to bring up. It's your warlord, and it's a deployment an objective marker in your opponent's deployment zone that you control, meaning you have to actually control that objective marker, not just end up on it, which is something Snikrot won't be able to do most of the time, just because he won't be able to kill them, whatever is left on there. I'm just understanding most people won't leave it open. They're gonna know this is coming and a possibility, meaning whatever you send over there has to be able to kill them, which is what you brought up before, which was Gazgul, right? This is like, okay, if Gaz can get across the table and take that objective, which has happened to me against Tyranid players, right? Could you do this? In reverse, in retrospect, how about the enemy does it to you? How likely is it that an enemy warlord can get to an orc primary objective home marker that normally just has grots on it?
That's there. Let's just say, if you're facing like demons, World Eaters, even Tau, like World Eaters, if you have Angron, that's pretty easy.
Yeah,
go off and murk your champions.
I'm just saying, Snikrot has a hard time of killing everything that's on that objective that's most likely defending it, if they're not straight up 12 inches keeping them out of there, right? Not to mention people overwatch him with flamers and weird type of weapons, and if they get one turn of shooting at him, if he can't get close enough to a charge on them right away. So it's weird. It's just a little weird for us to get, because we have to control it. What I say is most people are going to be able to score it against us.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, it's not a good tactic, but if like you're saying, the World Eater part.
What it was the weird boy with 10 boys is the one that's most likely to be able to do it.
Yeah, and then you have, what was it, Ruckus War? If you're still doing Green Tide.
If you're doing Green Tide, yeah. But in general, if you're doing even Warhorde, you can do Here We Go for +2 to your charge on that if you're coming in from there.
Yeah, because
it
just remind me on the Here We Go. So you have to be on the board, not in transport, and then so you do in your movement phase or command phase.
You have to do in your command phase.
Okay, so you do in the command phase, then you pop the.
Or you actually to my top of your movement. I have to read it again. It's been a while since I played Warhorde, but yeah.
So forgive me on that one. I've only been playing against Green Tide and Bully Boys.
But yes, that either way, Warhorde can give you that. So I'm thinking, if you're going to do this, if there's the one you're going to pick for Orks, you're most likely to do it with the Weird Boy and 10 boys. And as this way, you're also avoiding war of attrition if you need to, and you think your enemy's doing this, because you can run your battle line boys away. So this is why Weird Boy plus 10 boys might become interesting, just as your secret mission kind of last attempt, last counter, that kind of thing. So you really might just pay the Weird Boy tax and the Weird Boy, just for the fact that you want to counter 2 of these secret missions. In that case, really, guys, that's kind of how I'm seeing that. And as for if their weakness for Orks, possibly. But let's look at some of the harder opponents that I think we're going to have to face. And then I'll hit the super chats. I think we had a super chat earlier that I want to talk about. So we have a $20 super chat from Murder Mouth BedX Captain. $20 super chat. He says, they can take our teeth, they can stomp our power, but they will never take our. Whoa! Thank you for the $20 super chat, buddy. I appreciate you. That was a great poem, great way with words you get. Are you a grot? Are you so good with your words? What's up with that? No, I'm just kidding. No, I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you very much. And then we have one from Jae Hyun. DBH didn't even make it into the poll. Deservingly, Squigs needs some love. Yeah, for sure, bro. I'm sorry about that. Dude, Squigs definitely needs some love, man. It hurts where they're at. We're in a weird place, right? Even though I don't know. We'll talk about this in a second. So then we have tough matchups that I think you should look out for and study. So these are some matchups and why we think they're going to be a bit tough for Orks, why you should be doing your homework on them if you plan to go to events now, and how they're learning to play the game. That way you can understand how they're kind of scoring as well, and understand that this is your weakness that you have to look out for. So then we have first NIDS. So you want to talk about NIDS real quick?
Yeah. So the changes that they got. So you get the Shadow and the Warp is if you're within 6 inches of a synapse, you're an additional -1 leadership, or you're just -1 leadership. And if they have not Maleceptor, the Neurotyrant. Sorry, you can be -2. So even if you have war bosses or leaders in your unit, your leadership 6 is going to leadership 8, and then they get really good buffs if you're battle shocked. And then with the and speaking of the Neuro Tyrant, now they can join Zoanthropes. And the funny thing is, since it's a monster, you can actually, and for Big Guns Never Tire, it just says monster vehicle units. So since he's joining them, and for shooting into combat or out of combat, the actual Zoanthropes themselves don't suffer the -1 to hit because they're not monsters of vehicles, which is super dumb. And I really wish GW would fix that.
Okay, well, that's beside the point. What the point is that we're bringing up what's up with Nits is that they're going to be tough. They have all the probably offensive profiles that hurt all of our Ork defensive profiles now that we're losing Mega Knobs. And Exocream was already just strong enough to pop your trucks. Tyrannid infantry monsters, they all work well into Ork elite infantry. Squigs, Knobs. Knobs have a hard time killing Tyrannid monsters. You're not able to do good trades into them with your beast bosses on foot, with your beast Nagaboy combos. Gas is your only real reliable punch through. There's going to be a new way to kind of face Tyrannids in the mid-table that we're going to have to come up with. I think most people are going to start off with beast bosses and kind of work their way out from there and see how that goes. Gas might become really important just for that reason too. So you can take advantage of the good old critical 5s and lethal abilities from Gaz on beast Nagaboys and kind of fish for that. Then we have demons. What's up? What makes demons so good? Tell me what's up in the summarize and what, not just combos, but what changed or what's good with them fundamentally on their list that's going to be around.
So you're going to see a lot of greater demons. So every single greater demon basically got the 6-inch shadow aura that Be'lakor has, but it's demon locked or god locked. So like Nurgle, shadows for Nurgle, Corn for Corn, etc. So
and the shadow does.
So you're if you're within the shadow of chaos in general, you're at a -1 leadership, and if you fail a battle shock, you take D3 mortal wounds. And then if the demon pass it, they get +1 of their leadership checks, and if they pass the battle shock check, they heal D3. And then the big one is you can deep strike essentially 6 inches away as long as you're wholly within the shadow. If that makes sense.
Yes.
So let's say if you have like old Be'lakor is you measure out 6 inches away, or you measure out within 6 inches of him, and then the unit comes in deep strike, and they have to be not 9 but 6.
Yes.
So that's But
so not everybody can do that.
Yeah, and what's a funny trick you can do if you have multiple greater demons of the same god? You can basically rush and nesting doll them. So as long as one of them was on the board, you plop it down, and then the next one go from the other greater demon. So it's a funny little trick, but you can technically do it.
Okay, that's messed up. But either way, Tyranids are they popular? I mean, I feel like Tyranids aren't popular regardless. Do people own Tyranid armies? Do they make them more popular in the meta?
I think because of Leviathan, people just have Tyranids. So you might see
like demon. Well, we just said demons.
Oh wait, you said nids.
No, it meant demons.
Oh, I mean, yes, they're some people. A lot of chaos players have demons in general, and with the new changes, some people might just go out and buy them, or even longtime demon collectors. They're out in the wild. Don't get me wrong.
They're out in the wild, but they're not really that popular. Either way, they are strong, and they bring up the same problem that Tyranids are going to bring to you. Are they going to be tough monsters that have just enough offensive potential to kill Ork elite infantry, and things like that? So I definitely said Nids. Oh, sorry about that. Well, Nids, okay. I do think they're going to be popular. So I really meant demons as well as that, right? But popular Tau.
Yes,
Tau is popular. We know that for a fact.
Yeah.
You said you thought Tau was going to be strong. Why is that?
They didn't get any decreases in the what was it, the Dataslate or the FAQ. They got points drops on all their battle suits, including broadsides, all the 3, I forgot what they're called, but the 3 new versions of the crisis suits.
Yes.
So I think they just got more lethal, or just have more stuff. And even if you just stick with the Moncon, like 30 to 40 but what was it, breachers, they're just so lethal.
They're one of those armies that take advantage of the secret missions as well, where they can they can give you the first 3 rounds of primary and then try to score at the end and score their secret mission, blowing away Ork players, taking all the different angles of fire and slowly holding us back, taking the game late game. That's one of those armies that could take 3 different mid-table primary objectives late at the end of the game, or if you have nothing left on the table as an Ork player. So Tau in that way, Orks are going to feel them, just because we are very limited if we're playing Warhorde, and if we do decide to play Dread Mob, they have profiles to killing Morkanauts, Gorkanauts, stuff like that. So you'll feel the counter from Tau. Not that it was intentionally, but they have the tools to deal with orcs if we play Warhorde or Dread Mob, which kind of does suck. Now, World Eaters,
I think because that Bully Boys and Green Tide got worse, and World Eaters were already a decent check into them, or they have like an okay matchup. I think it just got worse. So, and they still have the right amount of tools, like the fights first from Mo, fight on death, like just on demand, lethal, sustained, the feel no pain, the -1 like especially -1 damage against Mega Knobs. That was a gigantic pain in the ass.
What I will say is, it is cool that orcs are playing Warhorde. You'll be more ready for fighting on death yourself, which I think is the hard counter for World Eaters in that case.
Oh yeah,
our transports, our trucks are still a real thing. Playing just straight up knobs will still be good. There is the swinging potential because your war boss isn't getting his additional attacks. You could feel that, I guess. That's gonna suck. But I think playing flash kits, people will start picking up flash kits, are one of those key units that I think using 10 or 2 5-man units, whatever it may be, are going to be more popular. Especially if you're going into World Eaters, you'll appreciate having some flash kits or something like that. You can use them to get in the way or to run out and shoot stuff before it runs straight into you. They also have good punching potential for that. So World Eaters, you can take them down. Angron's a real factor there, but you can kill everything else. What's going on? Or what you wanted to point about?
The very bottom one. So Admiral No Beard, if you have 0 battle line, they automatically get that secret mission because there's no battle line on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So take something.
Yeah. That's why I said people most likely will just end up taking a weird boy on a boy unit because it'll be a combo so you can counter multiple of these secret missions and kind of be able to run away or try to take someone's in their case. So yeah, you'll always want to keep your battle line and you really won't want them all to die. Yeah. You might leave your boys on your home field objective just so they don't get annihilated and then run out late game to just try to counter the secret mission or something.
And luckily with the indirect nerf, you're not going to be super worried about dying.
Nice. Sisters, you just think they're going to be popular as a whole, right?
Yeah, I know they took massive points increases, but they're mean.
They're pretty mean. Yeah. We'll have to see how they kind of end up playing out. But orcs are known for tearing them apart when we do get into them, just because they are soft enough and we do get volume of punches enough. They don't have the right defense profiles for us. So we do kind of tear through them even with our diminished units, and they don't do well when we put too much pressure into them. But with the new way they play, I mean,
I'd be worried about the
mid-table damage is nasty.
The penitent detachment, that one, because they can just send units just almost across the board. I would just be wary of that one.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things we could be wary of, but sisters is something we're gonna have to kind of develop, and we're gonna have to figure out what they're playing, what's most popular if you really want to be ready for them when you go to events, since they're gonna be kind of like one of those power gamed factions. Drakari is pretty decent into orcs right now because they have their profiles with their poison. They're hard-hitting infantry that can kind of take the initiative away from you. And the fact that most of their list have built-in like 24 Dark Lances. So if you're playing Dread Mob or you're playing Warhorde, they have the ability to pop your transports, kind of jump on the units that get kind of out of there, kill them really quickly. You'll try to fight on death, but they're actually trading into you when it comes for points cost as well. So that kind of sucks. The lack of our flash kits, which are one of the counters I used to love when they had back Captain Badrock with reroll hits, meant that you had something for effective Overwatch. Now you don't really have that, right?
I mean, you got Ludas, maybe.
I mean, so if you're playing Dread Mob, then you have Ludas, and then that's where they have 24 Dark Lances, and then the rest of your stuff's kind of like, damn. It's like, okay. I mean, so they know it can work. It can work. The Dread Mob, having a bunch of Ludas on your list would help, but you do need to have a bunch because they have enough of everything and redundancy. So I'm just saying that.
I understand. I actually don't play a lot of. I think I played one Drukari matchup in my whole 10th edition. I wouldn't say career, but the whole time. So I don't know the Drukari.
I got lucky. I played a couple matches for practice into them, but they're oddly annoying into orcs sometimes, right? You have to know their rules and kind of their target priorities, which is joining the transports, but you have to have tools to do that. If you're running squigs at them, they're gonna be like Dark Lance, Dark Lance, Dark Lance, and then so it's just kind of funny like that. But Drakari is oddly tough into orcs. We've seen that by this faction matchups we do as well. At least then we have Grey Knights.
Yeah.
What do you think about Grey Knights? I mean, before I go into it, but what do you think about Grey Knights?
I mean, if Bully Boys were still a thing, I'd be okay with it. But how they're at now, It's just the mass 2-up saves, access to armor contempt, running away when you get close. It's just a pain in the ass.
It's a pain in the butt, even for Warhorde versions of Orks. Getting squigs into them was always kind of annoying. You had Captain Badrook, so at least you could threaten some kind of shooting into them and overwatching into some of their strike marines. Them having paladins and paladin bricks being able to kind of withstand you punching is annoying. Good flamers to get your knobs when they get out of transports to charge you is kind of shitty. Volume, they have purifiers that are pretty much enough volume to deal with mobs of Boyz as well to some degree. They do struggle into battle wagons, I would say, but then people sometimes might have Canis Rex. You know what I mean? So we have all these different things we have to worry about going into Grey Knights where
and now Canis Rex can run through a wall.
Yeah, for sure. So
unless if he rolls,
and that's not even including all of this. I should have put knights like baby Chaos Knights as a whole. I mean, that's going to be kind of difficult. They could already walk through walls, but even more so.
Yeah.
And we lost Mega Knobs in that case. Something else that can kind of withstand them and punch them back. Now we're gonna what am I gonna throw you, a beast boss unit just so I can kill one brigand, one wargrave? Like, oh god, no, that sucks. So Orks have to evaluate. I think if you're playing Dread Mob, you have to go
Christian. Someone say Canis Rex.
Someone say Canis Rex, man. Shut up. All right, so then we have Gifted Show with 10 WAAAGH the gifted memberships. Whoa, let's go, Joe. I appreciate you, buddy. Great to see you. And he says, we are waiting for the 2 inches matter. Sure. Yeah, because 2 inches do matter, guys, with the Warhorde. Here we go, right? And Warhorde's at the beginning of the movement phase. Just to be clear on earlier.
You might be talking about pivoting
too. So I just want to give a couple closing thoughts on this real quick. One, Orks, you are playing Warhorde now for the most part with what you have. Most times when you're running any of these new lists that you're going to be running, they start Bully Boys, and then most of the time you're just like, man, this would be better in Warhorde. It's usually true. As well as Green Tide. When people say Green Tide still have teeth, it's because Boys are hard to bring down when they have the Feel No Pain and the 5-up invuln in a reliable fashion. But I don't think they're considering the secondary scoring potential for that too, right? So we'll have to see just how important battle line is there. Before I throw Green Tide into the gutter, I have to see how many missions out of a GT pack actually consider battle line. Yeah. Right. So if it's like 1, then it's like, oh, Green Tide, sorry, buddy. But if it's if it's more than that, we can consider things. So it is what it is. As for if you're playing Dread Mob, I think really consider bringing either 3 5-man units of looters with shock attack guns, or multiple 10-man units, or just 1 10-man unit and 2 5-man units, but bring them with shock attack guns. Looters are how you play Dread Mob. Whatever you add to that, we'll still figure it out along the way. But if you're playing Killicans, I suggest playing big max size unit of Killicans, put them into reserve, use them as one of your ingressing units. Zod can still be interesting, maybe in a 10-man unit, in my opinion, because you don't really want to give up Call the Horde. But closing thoughts, Dread Mob, if you are playing them, there are ways to play them. You can find them in the Discord, or we can talk about them more as I'll do videos on that as I get more practice games in. But don't be too afraid. Dread Mob is going to be a fun way to play, but also Warhorde is still very orky and has its potential. Now it's our ways to, now's our time to be creative. Don't take it as, oh, I can't play this faction anymore and I'm sad. Just think about it as, hey, you already had all those snaggy units that you put on the shelf. Time to bring them back, buddy. Right? Time to bring them back. It's all good. Some people are saying run the Gargantuan squig off. It's like, go ahead, but Nexus is so new that is there really something that's wrong? Right? It's like nobody really knows. So whatever you're feeling, I want to encourage you guys to go out there and play. I do encourage that double stop. I do want to say, though, take some things into consideration so you don't have feel bad moments. If you're going to bring something like flash kits, understand that they're not as good as they used to be, but they're multi-purpose units. You can use them in SWAT teams, and that might be a way that you want to start considering playing Orks as well. So there's a bunch of different combinations that you'll be able to add and play with your Warhorde. It's just Nexus will really teach us how many actions we need every mission, or if we should just go for the Alpha Strike, stick to Bully Boys, bring 30 commandos, Zogrod, run direct lines right into people with battle wagons, jump out, call another WAAAGH, and just erase people off the table. That really might end up being the answer if secret missions end up biting us in the butt and Dread Mob is not consistent, you know, we have ways to be creative, guys. We've seen people do already wild things, and Dread Mob hasn't even changed. So Warhorde still looks really strong. Gazgul still pretty awesome. We'll hit these super chats real quick, and then we'll close it off. So last comments, and I'll go through the comments as well. He said, today arrived my wall tags t-shirt. Love it, guys. 30 knobs with War Boss each wouldn't work in Bully Boys. He said it wouldn't. He said, yeah, I mean, are you saying it wouldn't, or are you saying it would?
What?
I mean,
I think it's viable.
I mean, I think it's fine. I would go maybe two 10-mans. And then the last one, you know, like I said, I really like a mob of boys on your list. If you're going Bully Boys, it's totally possible, but I do consider less knobs and add boys to most of your Bully Boys list. But whoa for the super chat, and I'm glad you got that t-shirt, buddy. Rock it out. That's what's up. I think did I miss something up here?
I think we got them all.
I think we got those. Just remember, guys, we have our raffle going off at 3K, which is just like about a dozen subs away. So give us a like and subscribe, hopefully, to get us that way. You could be entered in the super chat if you became a member. It seems like people aren't too upset about what's going on with these changes, but it is sad that we're pushing people kind of back into the index, right? But Tyler, this is making me borderline want to quit the hobby again after getting back into it. I haven't even bought all the models yet for the Bully Boys, nerfed in what, 2 months? Well, I don't recommend you get out of the hobby for that. I think you kind of assess what you have now and then work with, you know, community and your own understanding of the game to still play Bully Boys if that's what you want to play, but build it towards the direction that it's more viable in Nexus. You know, Bully Boys might have not worked how it was even with the Nexus changes as well. So this could, I understand it does suck because I have max Mega Knobs now, and I'm like, oh, well, what's the point of that? But
yeah, if I can survive all my Grot tanks and Grot Mega tanks going in the gutter, you'll be okay, Tyler.
Yeah, dude, I promise to tell you, you'll be good, buddy. At least you didn't buy them. You haven't bought them yet, right? You haven't bought all of them yet. That would suck if you bought everything.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so you guys are into the pain. You guys are laughing at the Pain Boys and the Pain Boss getting caught in the cross for real from him getting nerfed, the Excel document nerf. So, yeah. So Orks are doing all right because Orks are never beaten, right, guys? So we have to see what actually goes on. Let's get some test games in. Let's be very creative. Let's not be dismayed just because some changes were made. The meta people are going to jump off and go play a different faction now. Now it's time for us to have fun. Bust out your Gargantuan Squig-Off. Bust out your max Killer Cans. You know, take your max Grots on the table and for Dread Mob. I'm just kidding on that. Maybe look more into a bunch of commandos. We have a bunch of different things that we can do. Let's get stuck in, lads. But there's one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall because we knock your teeth out. Whoa!